guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a fantastic guest for you today, David Dowlen. He is the host of the Fallible Man Podcast coming out of Central Washington. I really love having guests such as Brent on the show to showcase the business entrepreneurship potential out there and happening. And I'm really excited about today's conversation about living your fullest potential, resiliency, becoming a man, and happy to welcome. So Brent, welcome.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, so I know your story, and we connected through Podmatch, and kind of briefly introduce yourself, what you do, what the Fallible Man Podcast is, and I'm excited to delve into the conversation.
Well, the Fallible Man Podcast, and what I do is I work with men. The world is a very interesting place for men these days. There's a lot of as men's roles in society have changed, as expectations for men have changed over the last several decades, there are a lot of men who just don't know where they fit in the world. And traditionally, we've been told, once you get to a certain level of education that you're going to do, get a job, raise your family. That's what you're worth. That's what you do. That's you. And I don't believe that. I think men have so much value. Everybody has a purpose. Everybody has an intention in their life that they can bring to the world for a better purpose than just, I go to work and I take care of my family. So I try and help men find that alignment in their lives and level up in the areas they want to.
Yeah, that's really interesting because you talk about the modern male role. And so, I guess traditionally we've been brought up, the man is the provider and, all these descriptions that you just highlighted for us. So kind of to set the stage, what are some other roles that men are currently thinking about and to kind of whet the appetite?
Well, and that's the problem, Chris, is there are so many men who don't know what that role is anymore. We've had this traditional provide, if I can say this right, provide, preside, and protect. And that's been us, right? And so now men are having to get creative because there hasn't really been this answer. It's like, where do I fit? We haven't explored men as nurturers very much, right? If you look at the ratios of like public education, only like maybe 10% or 12% of teachers are male. So there's that facet, right? We think of firemen or policemen, construction workers, and we're still doing that, but you have more to offer than that, right? I was told by a professional video reviewer at the beginning of my podcast that my show would fail because I wasn't niche enough. And I was like, I'm not just a 40-year-old guy who has 2 daughters and an IT job. That's not the summation of who I am. And I don't think anybody, man or woman, can be described so easily. So that's the struggle we're trying to find, because I think men can fill all kinds of roles.
Yeah, so interesting. It's that kind of helps me understand, kind of broaden the picture. Recently, a lot of male are what you call the nurturers, and then the females are the ones that are making the money, which is quite different than what we're so used to. One thing that was interesting is because I read a really great book called The Way of the Superior Man by David Dowlen, and he's talking about these ideas of masculinity. And in the past, like basically in the agrarian age or whatever tribal age, you had to go through these rites of passage. Like you had to, like it was these rites of manhood, but now kind of we don't have that anymore. So how do you create these rites of passage for the boys going into manhood, and so that they can really identify with these ideas of what masculinity is?
This topic that actually really fascinates me because we have lost our way on that. All through history, you see this. There is a defining line of when a man becomes a man in society. And we've lost that, especially in North America and several of the more European nations like England, where it's just all kind of blended, right? We've moved into this is like, you're a kid. And we send mixed signals all the time because we say you can't drink till you're 21, but you can smoke and go to the military at 18, right? So, and you have to pay taxes of this, right? So we start throwing these things out there, but none of them actually answer that question. And so we have a lot of young men trapped in that world. I would love to see that become, but at the moment that starts at home, right? That's something that father and mother are going to have to designate for their kids. And I think it should be really spectacular. I talked to an author one time. Stephen wrote an entire book on rites of passage because he was big into reinstating this and something they had done in their family. It was very interesting to hear how they defined, they make a big weekend out of it. Like it's a big weekend and all the men in the family come to celebrate these rites of passage of this boy's growing into manhood. But we're not going to get societal acceptance for that for a while. So we're going to have to start to do that in our home between, mothers and fathers. We're going to have to say as parents, this is when I believe that my son can take on a more manly, for lack of a better term, or masculine role. This is when we recognize that he is no longer a boy, he's a man. And we've actually stifled that in our society because used to, right, you hit 16, 18, you're like, you're a man. At 18, parents are like, get out. You're a man now. Go live your life. Now we got people staying at home till 23, 27, into their 30s even. And so parents are going to have to start to draw that line again. And it's going to draw a lot of scrutiny because you're going to get a lot of societal pushback to accept this. It's like, we'll let them flounder around until they feel like they're men. So it starts there. It's going to start like most choices. It's going to start with parenting in the home, going, this is the age in which we recognize our son is of age to provide something back to the home instead of just be nurtured.
Yeah, it's quite enlightening what you just described. And, like, for example, a lot of cultures, for example, the bar mitzvah or the quinceanera, kind of these symbolic rituals that define, these certain points. The other question, because we don't have we don't have good models, and again, we have mixed signals, and again, the media kind of defines these stereotypes of masculinity that could be quite toxic and result in a lot of problems, and it's quite prevalent. I mean, because I live in Latin America and I've traveled across, and it's kind of only, I mean, it's kind of prevalent in the Western, like the States and England, UK, Canada, but the other cultures, they don't seem to have this problem as much. So, moving on, the next question I have for you is, it sounds like it starts with the family, because we don't have churches, we don't, like, politics is kind of degraded. So it sounds like it's the family, and the family is also crumbling as well. So where do people start? I mean, like, maybe, people want to live their life to their fullest potential. How can they do that, and how can they overcome challenges and adversity?
For people to start living their best lives, one of the things that so I've been in the manosphere, quote unquote manosphere. I hate that term. There's just no other way to describe it these days. Of men's podcasters and men's YouTubers talking about being a man for several years. And quite frankly, most of it just annoys me. It's irritating. It really doesn't address any issue. If anything, it exacerbates it heavily. But one of the things that a lot of my fellow podcasters in this world miss is it starts with connection, right? Men innately need a mission in their life. But even without the mission, for that mission, they need something of value behind it that's worth the mission and the purpose. So it starts with connection. We like to brush it off, the lone wolf propagation through the media over the years, right? We have all the classic 80s and 70s and 80s heroes, Clint Eastwood riding off in the sunset, John Wayne from my era, right? And then you move to more, and you have these lone heroes or whatever. We propagated this lone wolf mythology that's just absolutely toxic. There's nothing A man won't fight without something to fight for, right? Men need actual, valid, positive, healthy connections. And that should ideally start in the form of family. I was raised in a very family first culture. My siblings are some of the closest people in the world to me. I love them dearly. I'm the baby. I'm 44, and my siblings are some of my best friends. We were taught a very family first dynamic, and part of that was ingrained because we moved a lot. So the only thing that was constant in our lives was each other. But if you can't find it in the family, men still need other men to connect with. Men still need those healthy connections. So the place we have to start is we have to start nurturing healthy connections again. And that means rebuilding family and prioritizing families, whether that's parents or like you, your spouse and kids, or however that appears in your life. That's why gangs were so prevalent and became so popular at one point, is we had all these men who had no family tie, no family connection. They didn't have a brotherhood. They didn't have a positive. So they found a place to fit because we need that. We need something worth fighting for. And at the end of the day, right, politics be damned, it doesn't matter. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't swear. All the stuff aside, nothing lasts. Everything fades away, right? You can make and lose a fortune overnight. But those connections, that's worth fighting for. That's something solid. So one of the things I try to move men towards is finding those positive connections in their lives. And that can be familial, that can be through a really close friendship. I'm a big proponent of having a group of men that kind of raise you up together. I have a couple I'm a part of at this point because we all have similar goals. All of us are trying to grow in a positive direction, but we pick each other up, right? We call each other out on stuff, and we need that camaraderie. Men can chastise men in a way that's not harsh, but it's also positive, right? We can call each other on each other's crap in a positive light when we have close relationships. And it helps us all get better, knowing that somebody's holding us accountable, knowing that somebody's going to be like, you were just lazy this week. That's why you didn't hit the gym. It wasn't that you were feeling overworked. You were just lazy this week, right? I need those people in my life to call me out. You probably need those people in your life. And so we need to start encouraging men because loneliness is a rampant issue right now. Men statistics, the research I'm seeing on it, and it's just terrifying. So many men feel alone, even in a crowded room, even with their family units. So many men these days feel alone, like they don't have a place. And we have to start solving that problem for men to be able to live up to their purpose and align with that better self.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like almost like a free for all because it's like where do you turn to and kind of so what are some you talked about really solid relationships and something to like a purpose, something to die for. So what are other critical traits that the people listening to this they should be developing to have a healthy concept?
I get a lot of flack for this one, but honestly, the most important one I want to say is humility. Humility is strength. I get so much crap for this, but humility is strength. To be humble and accepting of the fact that I could get better, I have room to grow, I don't know everything, requires an internal strength that most people underestimate. You have to be humble and you have to be strong for that vulnerability, to be able to be vulnerable and say, you know what, maybe I don't have this figured all out. Because so many times it's cast on men by society at large, like, you got all the answers.
Yeah.
Right? A guy's world can be falling apart. He's like, I got to figure it out. I'll figure it out. I got it. I'm okay. Right? Because that's what's expected of us. We're automatically looked down upon. I actually just ran a poll on this on Facebook with some of my audience. It's like, oh no, men should be able to be vulnerable. It's like people who responded to it, I actually know them, like know them directly. And it was all women who responded to it. And I know their husbands. And it's like, yeah, this is really funny coming from some of you because they may say it, but they don't want it. Men lose respect from especially their loved ones when they start to become vulnerable. So it takes a real strength to be able to be humble and say, and you don't have to say, be like, oh, weepy, but you do have to be able to say, you know what? I don't have the answer right now. I'm working on the answer, but yeah, it's kind of freaking me out a little right now, right? You don't have to get all weepy to be humble, but we have to start with humility. We have to dig back into discipline. Society has been pushing us away from discipline in our lives, right? It started with telling parents you don't discipline your kids as much. Discipline is bad. Don't spank your kids, whatever. It started there, and that's an extreme example. I know how people have mixed feelings about spankings, but it started with there was discipline, and it may not have been the best way to teach it at all times, but discipline was ingrained early on. If you look at generations as they go, even starting with my generation, Gen X, we ran pretty wild a lot of times. And with the progressive generations, we're just like, let them go, let them do their own thing. Let them ride their feelings out. Oh, you don't feel like it? Well, that's okay. Ow. I have two daughters, and it's like I tell them all the time, they're like, I need to go do this. Like, I don't want to. It's like, did I ask if you wanted to? Do you live in this home? So please go do what you were asked to do. I don't ask you to do a lot. Please go do this. Because life doesn't work that way, right? We don't get to be an adult and we only do the things we want to. When that happens, well, we've seen society in the recent last 10 years. It's a little chaotic these days, right? From when I was growing up, because we've let people just ride their emotions. We've stopped going, there are things in life you got to do whether you want to or not. If I told my boss, is like, no, you know what? I don't feel like doing that today. He's like, oh, good. I don't feel like paying you anymore. Get out. Right? There's repercussions. And so we have to get back to embracing discipline. Discipline isn't, we think of it as such a negative connotation, but discipline is not something you do with people you don't care about. Discipline is something you do because you love somebody. Discipline is because you care what happens to them, right? If I don't care about you, I couldn't care less about what you do. Yeah, you want to go do something stupid? Go ahead. Go ahead. My daughters want to do something that's going to get them hurt. I'm like, no, no, no. This isn't a conversation. You can start doing burpees. My kids do burpees. I like to use burpees as a correlation to not doing what they're told. But if we start with humility and discipline and then tie in some integrity, we start a really good path forward.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because you touched upon integrity, and so also elaborate on integrity because I think the erosion of the trust in society is really eroded, and nobody trusts anybody, and you can't trust leaders anymore. You can't. So how do you develop integrity? Where does that start?
Integrity really starts at home. It's so many of our issues can be resolved with restoring a healthy family system in the world. But integrity really starts with home. I've told my daughters it is a much greater sin, for lack of a better term, to lie about what you did to me than it is to do whatever you did in my household. If you did something stupid, okay, yes, there are repercussions for that, right? There will be discipline or whatever needs to happen. But if you lie to me, I don't get angry about my daughters making bad choices until they try and lie about it. And that's very much in the household I grew up was the same way. It was, yes, you're going to make mistakes. No, what you did is not okay. Yes, there is, penalties for that, right? There's a repercussion for that. It's going back to the basic science, right? Every action has an opposite and equal reaction. So yes, I'm going to have to pay whatever cost for that. But lying to my parents was never tolerated. That was always much more, the penalties on that was much, much more severe because trust was all we had, right? When you get down to it, there was a time in our world when a handshake was a legally binding contract. As legal as paperwork or anything else, a handshake was a legally binding contract. Why? Because integrity was part of society. And so if I shook your hand and said, yes, I'm going to do this, it's done. That's it, right? And we need to start finding our way back there. And it starts at home with reinforcing the value of always telling the truth. It's really ironic these days because so many of like the government agencies of various countries, including the US, a lot of these big agencies like the FBI have their core values in their seals, and integrity is almost in every single one of them. And it's become such a sham. I was in the military for a while, and that was one of our core things in the Air Force was integrity. And that has become a mockery. Society has taken these things that gave us value as a society, that gave us strength and structure as society to function at a higher level, and started mocking them and making them a joke and degrading their value to where we have generations that are growing up with thinking integrity is a punchline. But that all starts at home. Schools aren't going to teach that. Schools aren't going to reinforce that. That all starts at home. And that's whether you're a single parent or a full set of parents, however you want to say it, it doesn't matter. That starts in the child's home, because integrity is something that has to be ingrained early on, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. It's like, well, why would I do that? Why would I worry about that if no one's ever going to know? Because for that to be effective, that has to be ingrained early on.
How can people find out more about you? Check out your podcast, and because I know a lot of a lot of listeners, they're parents and they want to find out more and reach out to you.
The easiest place to find me is the falliblemanpodcast.com. I have bi-weekly newsletters. I have another website. I have all kinds of things, but the easiest central place to just start is to go to the falliblemanpodcast.com and see what we got going on there. There's links to social media. There's a blog. There's a podcast. There's videos. And from there, I'm pretty easy to find.
Yeah, and for all the audience, I really appreciate Brent coming on and giving a lot of true advice. And be sure to check out and follow, like his socials, and check out his podcast for up to date, engaging content. And thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure.